So moving on to another thing, which is, I guess, creators attacking the fan base or just completely disregarding them. Have you heard about Marvel admitting that they don't want to hire fans to write anything?
I'm not surprised. I've heard things like this since years ago.
Yeah.
When it comes to Star Wars, Star Trek, same difference. So I'm not surprised when it comes to Marvel.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one because if you look at Marvel versus The Witcher as a case study, The Witcher has a big fan base, not Marvel level, but a big fan base. And they did exactly the same thing. And the fan base, because it's smaller, has diminished to the point where it's completely a bomb now.
Yeah.
And you can't bring that back. And it's such a niche product. And also you lost the charismatic star. No one's interested in it. Marvel are doing exactly the same thing where they're hiring people that aren't fans, that do not like the fans and are disrespecting the source material and are actively, have a disdain for it. And yet Marvel has only been able to, sort of ride on the smoke of this for so long because it's a bigger, wider recognized product. But it is on the decline. And we've seen that now. We've seen it in the box office totals. So it's interesting when you look at the two, you think at a certain point they're going to realize, but no. And I just don't get it. Like, why would you not do that? So this is Nate Moore, the guy who, he's been on he's been on some good stuff, but producing stuff. But and he also did the most recent Wakanda Forever. But Matthew Boloney, who's actually been doing some really good work, so kudos to him, said, about his general experience working for Disney subsidiary, for Marvel. Moore was eventually asked if there was some kind of a Marvel boot camp or something that you do with these filmmakers to ingratiate them into this world and knowing all the things that they need to know. Now, that's actually a really good question from Bologna. It is a great question because he's basically saying, look, is there anything you do to get these people sort of, just in the world a little bit? No, was the response. Just straight up, no, not really.
Well, and I can see this becoming a problem. They say the reasoning here. Go ahead, and there's more to it than that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so he says, one thing I think is interesting, and specifically for writers, I would say, is that a lot of times we're pitched writers who love Marvel. And to me, that's always a red flag. I don't want you to already have a pre-existing idea of what it is because you grew up with the comics and that's what you want to recreate. I want someone who's going to be hard on the material, who can go, what is this? I think there's a movie here, but maybe we should look at it this way. What?
And that, my friends, is how you get shit like the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Is it just bizarre?
Yeah, I know that was a deep cut, but
I mean, I'm speechless. I don't
get it. It makes absolute complete sense to me because these guys are fucking idiots. Like, I've talked to people about this before and they've said the same shit. Again, not necessarily about Marvel, but about these other properties. And one is, if you like classic stuff, you're already anti-woke. You're seen as anti-woke. Secondly, they don't like to have to deal with somebody who knows more about the shit than them. They hate that.
True.
That makes them look bad, and then it makes them feel like an idiot. And especially when it comes to things like Star Trek, that was where like they would never hire writers who were fans of the classic shows because they hated to have somebody in the writer's room pop up and go, oh, they already did that on Deep Space Nine, or something to that effect, because then they'd have to deal with that bullshit. The other side of it too is, like these guys are saying here is, oh, you have a preconceived notion of, well, you should have a preconceived notion of what something is.
Absolutely.
If it's what it is. Like,
I got
this right here sings the problem with all these things.
Yeah, I got a perfect example of this. If you just look at what Amazon did with the woke Rings of Power, Tom Shippey, who knows the lore and everything about that, they canned that dude. Probably because the whole time he was giving them so much backlash of this is not right. This is not how it needs to be done. And he was probably giving them so much shit about it. They're like, dude, get out of here. We're done.
What you just said, Nate, is the thing they don't want to hear too. That's the other thing. The fans won't like this. The moment you say
Yeah.
that in the room, they get pissy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, the fans don't know what the fuck they want.
Yeah, and on a smaller scale, just look at the video that we watched on last Thursday's stream with
Yeah.
RGT85 in the interview with for at G4. You know, and the questions
Yeah.
being asked to that chick. You know,
Why should we cancel Batman?
yeah, and so it just they keep having these activists that they hire and these people that don't know the source material or don't like it or don't think it's for modern society in today's times and want to change it to fit their own worldview, and then they completely destroy it and people get pissed off and then their shit doesn't do good and then they don't then they lose money and you know. It is.
Well, the funny thing is that they're like, oh, well, you know, we need to. Why don't we look at it this way, right? And what does that boil down to? What have we actually got in terms of them doing this? You know, not fans of comics and well, why don't we just have a look at it from this slant? All we've had is them just swap everyone out for women. It's not exactly a great, deep, broad.
Not only that, usually
philosophical look at the material, is it?
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing is, having somebody give a different perspective and view on something is not a bad thing. I mean, if you go back to the X-Men movies, I mean, they did more modern outfits. They didn't have Wolverine in the yellow, you know, with the big black, you know.
The difference there was Bryan Singer wasn't a comic book fan, or at least not a X-Men fan. But what he did do is he read some, or actually I heard he watched the series, and for pretty good authority. And after he watched it, he's like, oh, I get this. I can do something with this, you know, and it's kind of like, that's the difference is you get somebody like a Bryan Singer or a Tim Burton when it came to Batman. He didn't know any Batman shit. The only Batman he knew was Adam West. Somebody handed him Dark Knight Returns and handed him The Killing Joke. And he's like, okay, I can do this. And that's why that movie feels like those. And the same thing, the other one to go to is Nicholas Meyer when it came to Star Trek. But again, you have somebody who had a pedigree behind them who had a history of knowing literature. And so he took one look at Star Trek, watched a few episodes and goes, oh, this is Horatio Hornblower in space. I can do this. That's a big difference from having somebody like that compared to, you know, Ava DuVernay or some of these other fuckers they got working on this shit sometimes.
Yeah.
But the article continues and he says, look, I think that's important to be able to go, look, the source material is great and I love it. And comics work great in the medium they were built in. But that's not a direct one-to-one translation to the best version of the movie. I agree. But then this follow-up statement's such nonsense. And sometimes it takes someone who's out of the culture to go, hey, I know you think it should be this, but maybe it should be this. No, because the people they hire that are out of the culture are individuals that have just come out of academia. They've just left university. They're all left wing because academia is unfortunately homogenous in its approach now. It doesn't nurture or foster debate and actual reasoned discussion. It's literally you must sing from this socio-political hymn sheet, otherwise you're excommunicated. So they all sing from that one singular homogenous approach. They might be out of the culture, but they're in one culture. They're all the bloody same. That's why we're getting such garbage nowadays, because they get new writers, brand new writers. None of them are good. They've not been good for years now. You know, we'll get someone out of the culture. No, you should get someone in the culture. At the very least, get someone in the culture that can bounce off of the other person. And then you can come to an understanding between the two of you on what is a good approach. You know, that is a better approach to filmmaking than just one narrative, which is,
and it's a complete disconnect from the fan base that they're making the content for. You know, why are you gonna change this when the fans know it to be this way, and then you make some sort of drastic change, and everybody's like, "What the fuck is this? Why would you do this?" You know,
that is what people have been saying, isn't it? Like a lot of the stuff which is now leading to their decline, people are just like, "What? What are you actually doing?" So yeah, I don't know. It's just absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens, but it's very clear that they've been on this path for a little while now, and I can't see them getting off of it because, again, like a tick, you know, it's embedded itself in the skin of Disney, but there's a lot of them. So, unfortunate.
Well,
Really.
like I'm wondering what the magic money number is for them to lose money. You know, how much money do they got to lose before they're like, okay, we got to do something about this?
Yeah.
Well, the problems you have is, and this is where I think Bob Iger's situation, and I brought it up before, is you got ESG money and other situations coming in with these companies I'm not even going to name that are big parts of these corporations that have political interests involved. So there's money in those areas that'll make up for things. And that's where I think the swing was coming in, because until the last couple of weeks here, it was getting to a point where they were letting their guard down. So they were allowing some of the other shit to come through. They're like, well, yeah, we got to start making some money again because money isn't coming from other places. Well, and all of a sudden you had Elon, FTX, Trump all happen in a matter of a couple weeks here. Boom. That changed things practically overnight. And I can see that that's why Disney panicked and made this move, because it's a safety measure to them. Because Bob Iger's safe. He's a safe bet. And that's why they did this. It makes sense to me. I think it's stupid. It's going to be the wrong move, but you know what? It's going to be hilarious watching David Zaslav run over them in the next couple of years, because I think Warner is going to just run away with Hollywood in the next couple of years, because they're going to know they're just going to be trying to do what people want to see. And that's where David Zaslav comes from, is the world of cable. And you can, you know, him and Haw all day, but you can't sell something that eyeballs aren't on. And he knows that. So, you know.
I hope so, because I'll support them if they're going to be making good content over there at Warner.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to make everything anti-woke or anything like that, but he's just going to make stuff that people want to see.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Like, look, you know, I don't give a shit about DC and I don't give a shit about Marvel. I literally couldn't care less about either of them. I just want good products. So no matter who is making the good product, they will have my money. You know, like I don't have any specific ties to Star Wars, for instance, but I really like Andor. To me, it's a great product. So they've got my eyes glued to it every single week, you know, without failure. I don't have any of that sort of company bias because, I'm a DC fanboy. I don't give a shit about DC. Oh, I'm a Marvel fan. I don't give a shit about Marvel. Star Wars. I don't give a shit about Star Wars either. Like, I'm not, you know, I grew up on 2000 AD and those kind of comics and things like that. So basically, all David Zaslav and DC have got to do is go, all right, let's just give people what they want for a change. Let's just do that. Then they'll have my money day one. And that, you know, that would translate to other things, you know, like all this random paraphernalia shit that, you know, is like behind me on the walls and stuff. Because it's nice to be surrounded by the stuff that you like. You know, we are the consumers. So if they start actually catering to the consumers, then they're going to make more money, aren't they? So.